What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel podcast. This is your host, Tom Tona. I am here with Adam Rossen. Adam is the founder and CEO of the Rossen Law Firm. They are the biggest criminal defense firm in Broward County. And I met Adam through some of the masterminds that we both frequent. And I was just kind of blown away by the size and scale of what he's building in what is traditionally a field that's populated mostly by much smaller solo practitioners. So Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. And anytime I can talk to you is going to be a good day.
Yeah, man. And I'm really excited because I know what you're working on in principle, but I haven't gone into deep detail with you and as much detail as you want to share with people. I know certain areas of practice that lend themselves to scale. But I was blown away by the size and scale of what you're doing, and you're siloed strictly in criminal defense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was interested in, getting you on to talk, the business side of things, but, we have so much in common. And yeah, I was down in Orlando. You were asking me how my trip to Florida was. So I had a great trip that started out. I was supposed to be in Orlando for a mastermind with, it's like an Atticus related mastermind. It's an offshoot. And then I ended up going to Fort Lauderdale first. I was meeting with somebody down there to talk shop, between a Florida, New York type of personal injury connection thing. And then I had dinner with our mutual friend, Bill. And that's always good. That was like a 4 hour.
I haven't seen any mug shots, so you guys must have had fun, but not too much fun.
Not too much fun, though. I'm probably the stick in the mud compared to the Wild Bill, as I like to call him. So, I want to make the show about you, and I really want to dig into one. How long have you been practicing law in general? Because you're a young guy. You have no gray hair in your beard like me.
I know. Well, it's out of the beard so far. I'm getting a little bit on the sides and trying to make sure that, we make that go away. So I'm plucking every night. But also my wife's 9 years younger than me, so she keeps me young. But no, I just turned 43. And so I've been an attorney since 2006. So what is that? Almost 20 years. And I was a prosecutor at the Broward County, which is the Fort Lauderdale State Attorney's Office, for 2 years. A little under 2 years. And I left to start my own firm in March of 2008, just a few months before, the great, the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And I started, it was me and my buddy. We were both prosecutors. We were roommates and we were partners. We were doing criminal and immigration, and he gravitated towards the immigration. He learned it and got pretty good at it. But from 08 to 15, it was just the two of us. We had no staff at all. So, we pretty much did everything ourselves, and we never really grew. We grew enough to not come crawling back to the prosecutor's office, but we never grew further than that. And, and when we split, he decided he wanted to split and just go some different paths. And that's in 2015 is when I'm like, okay, I need to be reborn and figure these things out to build an actual business, an actual firm. And that's really where things kind of just took off from there.
Tell me about the technical side, because a lot of people, nowadays, especially people that are like 10 to 20 years behind us on the journey, on the entrepreneurial journey of owning a law firm, are like, I'm just going to open a practice up at a school. I've never tried cases. And so on a technical side, I'm sure you did trial work.
Yes.
And you tried, did you try a lot of cases when you were at the prosecutor's office?
Yes, I did. So they hired about 30 of us in our 2006 class. And I've always been the one who, I like to figure out the rules so I can either break them or figure out the game to manipulate them to my success. And that's maybe one of the reasons I like marketing and business so much, because it's basically the same thing. And I think that's what made me a very good trial lawyer. But I figured out how the prosecutor's office worked, and I made sure that I sat in on as many trials as I could. I loved being in trial. That was, especially for somebody who grew up as a natural introvert, that was still kind of just like a high for me. And I mean, I had so many trials. I was I was the first one promoted in my class out of 30 something of us. And I was promoted twice before most people were promoted once, and then got to serious, felonies. But I also, I'm the type of person, like I said, if I think a rule is silly or stupid, I'll just break it. And I got into some, I just didn't like the way the office was run, because I didn't think I was really helping people enough. And I'm sitting there, I remember sitting there in maybe an 8x8 interior office at 7:30 at night on the phone with Sally Mae, because I'm putting my loans in forbearance, going, these people, my bosses, don't even care about me or the good work that I'm doing. And look all the sacrifices I'm having to make. And then that really got my brain kind of churning. And about 3 to 6 months later, me and my roommate, my old business partner, we decided to leave. We had no business plan, no budget, didn't know what we were doing, no marketing plan, but we stumbled through and we survived. And now things are, tremendously different.
Yeah. And I think that what you're doing, and we'll get into more of the business aspect of it, but I think that what's cool is I know a bunch of criminal defense attorneys, and they're all, in their 50s, let's say, or late 50s. But they're all still running the court. They're running themselves ragged. And what I've noticed is that you really took that business trajectory seriously in a field where I have not seen that. Like, it's pretty atypical. It's different in PI, right? Like, you have guys like me or Golden Farb, and we run these things like businesses. But with PI, it's somewhat easier to scale given the nature of the way the fees are structured and the way they unfold typically. What's interesting about the fact that you've been able to do it is do you find yourself in kind of a niche area within criminal defense, to the extent that I don't know many people that have the scale that you have?
Right. So, I always say criminal lawyers, nationwide, 99.9% of them are either Better Call Saul or the Lincoln Lawyer, right? It's a lawyer and their trusty sidekick, and that's it. And most lawyers will pick up a file or meet a client and say, all right, I can try that case tomorrow. Let's go, right? A little bit of cowboy law is what I also call it.
Right.
And what we do is our goals are to bring suits to criminal defense, have a big, powerful team, be politically powerful among, the players, right, in the game. That includes the judges who are up for re-election, the prosecutors, right, the public defenders. Just make sure that we are strong and powerful, and that we have a voice, not for me or for the team, but for our clients, and make sure that we bring a Ritz-Carlton level of service to our clients. And I always say that we're relationship builders first and community builders second. And how we do that is through exceptional criminal defense. Now, as far as the breakdown of what we do, now we run on metrics and numbers. We haven't always been that way. So I can tell you that about 25% of our cases and about 25% of our revenue comes from DUI. And I want that's been getting lower and lower every year, which is a good thing, because it means we're getting bigger fee cases on sex crimes, where we're 3 years into a federal white collar practice that is just doing phenomenally well, where we have, major cases all across the country.
Oh, really?
So, yes. I can't tell you we have 30 murder cases, because no private criminal defense lawyer has 30 murder cases, because most of those are public defender clients. But we have about 3 right now open, and we have about 3 to 5 DUI manslaughters and vehicular homicides. And we also have a big niche within the mental health and substance abuse communities. Those issues are near and dear to my heart and to everybody in my firm's heart. So it's, we do a little bit of everything. But of course, we see that there's certain types of crimes and issues that just work better with us and our firm. So,
I think that's awesome. And we'll dig down into those sub niches in a little bit. So did you feel that making the jump from prosecutor to defense helped you, or you had to do some mind work on, kind of adjusting your thought process to how you viewed your clients now?
So I definitely did some unintentional mindset work. It took me, I'd say, about 2 or 3 years to really shift my mindset of looking at a probable cause affidavit and looking at it truly 100% from the defense side. It took me a while. As far as being, look, and I can have the duality, I do have the duality of being a very hard charger, very autonomous, very go, go, go and driven, but also being very naturally empathetic and caring about people. And so that aspect was easy. Friday I was a prosecutor who cared about people. Monday I was a criminal defense lawyer who cared about people, right? That was very easy for me, which is not easy for most prosecutors. Now, but the other aspects, it did take me a while. 6 months in, I'm like, oh, okay, well, how do I set a deposition? Or even 3 months in. So there's all those, even the procedural or practical aspects of being a criminal defense lawyer. But, nowadays in our firm, we have the benefit of having about a 25-person team, and our lawyers are so used to everything being done for them, or a lot of it. And I always say, hey, how I figured this? Because they'll come to me and go, Adam, how do you do X, Y, and Z? Be like, well, I figured it out because it was the difference of, was I going to eat that night or not?
Right.
Or was I, right? It was out of necessity. I had to figure everything out. So I've always been naturally good at figuring things out.
Do all the attorneys in your office try cases?
Yes. Oh yeah. So for us, criminal defense, one of our prerequisites is you have to be a good trial lawyer. But I make sure to tell, when we're recruiting people, I say, look, trial skills, this much of the job, 5%, right? And that's things that a young to medium, even to an old school public defender, because we really like to recruit from the public defender's office, not from the prosecutor's office. But a lot of them don't, it's more of the ego play. Oh, I'm a badass. I'm a trial lawyer. I can convince a jury anything. Okay, yes, but that's 10% of your job, right? A lot of our job is customer service, client relations, and of course, we have to be good lawyers, but 5% of our cases go to trial. So it's motion practice, right? It's negotiating with the prosecutors. It's so much more than just being, a great trial lawyer.
It's so interesting to me, the whole space, because it's such a different world from the civil practice that I have, and the stakes to me are the highest that you'll ever find in what you do, right? So I find it super interesting. I love talking to, criminal defense attorneys that love what they do. Again, what I think sets you apart is, you've got a couple of pioneers like Seth Price, or I know Jay Ruane has a scaled practice as well. But other than those two, you're the only name I know that's been able to scale to the team that you have, and knowing where you want to go from a revenue perspective, right? And where you are.
Yeah. So there's a few in other parts of the country. There's a few in South Florida. I can't say we're the largest in South Florida yet. We're the largest in Broward, whose main office is in Fort Lauderdale, but we're one of probably the top 3 or 4 in South Florida. But they're not in some of our groups. A lot of those owners of firms, it's all just pour more money into vendors and marketing, and they're not there to really learn and worry about the business and the management. Or if they are, they're just in other groups. But I'm in a lot of groups and I don't see them. So
I was going to say,
you.
Other than you or a Jay Ruane, I think that's the benefit of those masterminds, right? You're in a room with business-minded lawyers, and it's not agnostic to the niche that you're in. If you want to build a scalable practice, all the same rules will apply with modifications or minor tweaks.
Well, Tom, you bring up an excellent point. So let me talk about one of the very first things I did on my journey. So in 2015, when I split with my partner, Bill, who's still a great friend to this day, I spent all of 15 learning and absorbing, but taking very little action. And in 2016, I finally signed up for the very first program, and it was Ben Glass's Great Legal Marketing. And Ben is still a friend of this day. And I know I've seen you at, I think we talked at last year's conference.
Yes.
And I was in Ben's mastermind eventually for, a few years after I joined, for about 5 years. And one of the very first things I did was, and this was of course pre-kids, so it was easy. I told my girlfriend, no, she was my wife then. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going and locking myself in the office all weekend. And instead of trial prepping, I'm just going to be reading the last 10 years of newsletters. Then they had their digital vault, and I'm just there flipping through, reading every single thing. And the newsletters are, they were 15 pages. So I was just absorbing myself in them. And I'm sitting there. One of the brilliant ideas, that I had was they were talking about a very successful North Carolina family law firm and how they marketed towards therapists, towards marriage and family counselors for their divorce and family law practice. And I said, there's a huge issue with substance abuse and mental health. I know a lot of people in the field. I'm going to be known as the criminal defense lawyer who markets towards them. And of course, not as the sleazy lawyer, but making sure we give value, doing it the right way, making sure I'm a member of that community and, that we're partners in this. And that led to an entire, speaking series, local, statewide, and nationwide conferences where I'm on stage lecturing to therapists, and we get referrals from therapists all the time. And these are great referrals, and we're able to help and fulfill a need. And we have in our firm about a 50 to 100 person referral list where if we have a client, right, and we're the first point of contact, and we need to refer them to somebody, a professional, right? Because I know all of us lawyers, we're amateur therapists, right? But if I need to refer them to a professional, then we have our network that we can make the outbound referral to. And all it was just from looking at something that a family law firm's doing and go, I can tweak things and make it for criminal defense for what I do. And so I've always been good about iterating the process and working through that.
That's awesome. So I hung up with my fractional CMO yesterday, and he's got a category called COI, Centers of Influence Marketing, which is referral-based marketing at a higher scale than just having lunch one-on-one with somebody, right? So I think that that's brilliant. And if anybody's doing the practice of criminal defense, it'd be wise to kind of re-listen to that section of the podcast, because I think that's really valuable advice.
Well, and for anybody who knows, that's our good friend John Fisher's model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The books and the Mastermind and all of that stuff. Meanwhile, he's got every med mal referral in all of New York coming to him across the country. If it's a New York med mal case, it typically goes to him.
Absolutely.
But what, again, so you've been doing this, you said almost 20 years, right? You just got recognized as one of the top 100 criminal defense lawyers in Florida. Was that recent, that award?
No, we've had lots of awards over the years. So those things, luckily last 5-10 years, we pretty much have won all the major awards. So I think it's humbling.
It's funny how the humble guys and girls that are like, luckily, and I'm like, 20 years of hard work into prepping and locking yourself behind closed doors for weekends at a clip. So, I attribute that more to the hard work and your work ethic than anything else. Can you talk about a pivotal case in your career that had a significant impact on you or the community?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, let's see. We've had so many because our cases are so deeply personal to our clients. There's been so many different, and what I hate to use qualifying words like serious, right, or not, because to a client who's never been arrested before, a DUI could be the most devastating, serious thing in their lives. And we can't, a lot of lawyers have that mindset, right, where they'll say those things, right? So I'm always trying to stop myself. Same thing with cheap versus expensive, right? What is cheaper versus expensive? It's all relative. So, but one that really that we always go to is, so a client of mine, his name is James, and he's been all over our marketing, and he's actually, there's a picture of videos of him on our website. But and now he's my friend, right? And it's just one of those situations. Good guy, grew up in South Florida in Broward County his whole life, and just was a bit of a wild child in his teen years, and got into drugs, and he's in jail. We didn't handle his original case. We got hired by his wife, and to his credit, he has an amazing wife. His wife is is a strong-willed person, and really kept that family together during dark times. And I'm there, and I'm helping him, and it was just violating probation over and over. It was all drugs and drug related stuff, right? And here's a 6'3" man who's about 140 pounds. Okay. You can just see the toll that the drugs had taken on him. And he was in front of the toughest judge in Broward County at the time. She was just very, very, very tough. And she was a micromanager and meddled in everything. So a lot of the lawyers would get frustrated with her. And we worked it out where we saved him from prison because he was supposed to go to prison. And we got him into treatment. And he's doing exceptionally well. And about 9 months later, he calls me and he's like, Adam, or maybe it was, he calls me and he's like, Adam, I'm going to jail again. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I'm doing amazing. It's like, remember when I was absconding and on that bender before I met you and we talked about it? He goes, yeah. He's like, yeah, I forgot to tell you because I even forgot. I was so drugged out. I stole a professional paint gun. He was a car painter and car detailer. Now he owns a body shop and employs his dad. Like, amazing story. And the prosecutors and the police had the information. They knew it was him. They just didn't get around to charging him until about 9 months after he was out of jail, after we resolved all the violations of probation. So now he had to go back in. And I think I was actually more upset than he was, which was a testament to his new mindset and everything. And I remember I was on my honeymoon. Actually, we got him out of jail with a different judge. And then on my honeymoon, I'm in Capri, and Manny, who was my attorney then, or my only attorney, now he's the managing partner of the firm. He handled the case in front of the really tough judge, and she took him back into custody because she threw a fit that the other judge let him out at first appearance court. And I remember getting the call, and I'm like FaceTiming with him in Capri on my honeymoon, all upset and mad, but he was calm and cool. And he's like, look, I'm just paying for what I did in the past. And I was like, yeah, but should have handled that, back then. Long story short, every Father's Day, every birthday, he's texting me. I'm seeing pictures of him and his kids. He's 6'3" now, 240 pounds. He's successful. He's happy. He gave me his 3-year medallion in AA, which is a huge deal, which is one of the highlights of my career. And he actually sent me a picture about a month ago because he now comes back and speaks at a lot of the rehabs, where he gave the judge was there because she's still very involved in treatment. He gave her his 6-year medallion, and he sent me a picture of him and her. Wow. And it's just such a touching story. I mean, we have so many where we've been able to keep families intact, where you have an immigrant who, commits a crime, but it's not serious, but the government thinks it is, right? I mean, it's just, our work is so fulfilling. And we, our lawyers, we have a group chat. And it's every Father's Day, every Mother's Day, Thanksgiving, right? All the holidays, we'll just screenshot the text that we get from clients and share it among the lawyers with kind of a, this is why we do what we do reminder, because it is a physically or mentally challenging job that we have. But all of us are so caring and loving towards others that, it's worth it. But yeah, I mean, we have so many stories.
That's amazing.
Tom, we have an internship program, and every year James comes to the program. He has a morning where he does his lecture and speaks to them as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's awesome. Good stuff. Yeah.
Well, because I think, are you doing EOS?
Yes, we're in our 3rd or 4th year of EOS.
Yeah, so you have a crystallized vision, a crystallized mission. You know who you are, both as a leader and as a law firm. And I think that's what has allowed you to kind of really continue on the trajectory that you're on, right? I think that just from my outside point of view to this niche in the law is it's never been more important to have law firms like yours where, every day you open up something online about prosecutorial abuse, and then the fraud that's tied to privatization of prisons, right? And then you watch these documentaries about how privatized prisons are subsidized by, big corporations who prey on the low end or the low cost of labor that you can get through prisoners. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what is happening in our country? So I think that your firm, your lawyers, are really heroes in a world that we kind of need those protections in place.
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm with you 100%. And my wife is a prosecutor, and she's one of the good ones. But we have a lot of conversations and sometimes disagreements. And she's always saying, "Well, she wears the white hat," and I said, "Not necessarily. We've seen it." And look, litigation naturally attracts competitive people. I'm very competitive, and 25-year-old, 26-year-old prosecutor me was a totally different person than even 28-year-old criminal defense attorney me. And I think one of the issues too is that we have young people who generally become prosecutors because they've never done anything in trouble. They've never done anything stupid. Luckily, I was the prosecutor who I did a lot of stupid things as a kid, but admittedly, I didn't do anything unethical, but looking back, I let the competitive fire affect some of my decision-making where I believe, maybe I could have been a little nicer or softer or more lenient. I was always battling hey, can I help this person? Even as a defendant versus, well, if the lawyer pisses me off, I want to win. Right. And that's not what prosecutors should do. Right. They really, truly have to be the honest and ethical one. And there's a lot of politics, just like you're saying, involved. Look, in Florida, prosecutors are elected. Look, our governor suspended 2 or 3 prosecutors and just basically kicked them out of office because he didn't think they were being tough enough. Right.
Really?
And so there's, no matter who you like and don't like and where you sit politically, there's other motivating factors. And one of the things that really turned me off to being a prosecutor is when I was there, I was basically told, hey, you have to get the cops' backs because that's part of our job. Because what if the newspaper, right? What if this person commits another crime? Well, the newspaper's blaming the head boss.
Right.
And he's going to be up for re-election every 4 years. And I'm like, but I hear the same cops are being accused of the same dirty things. And I'm starting to believe it. This is not what I thought I was going to do here.
Right. So how long were you a prosecutor for?
Only 18 months, less than 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's a stepping stone for a lot of people, that and the public defender's office, right? Because you get great skills. The issue is that the skills you get, people's lives are at stake, right? So to temper ambition with what the job is, and then the political pressures that get put on that everybody should know about, so that's why you see a lot of people moving from the DA's office and, it's like taken to New York. Same thing, 18 months, 24 months. They try their cases, they get their skills under them, and they're either going into criminal defense or personal injury. A lot of them transition to personal injury. So let's switch gears because I know you now as, businessman Adam, right? Like you're running the firm. Are you still handling files?
No. So I'm not the primary lawyer in any case. Now, I love the strategy. So on our big cases, or if it's a client that I sign up, I'm still heavily involved in sales because I love the clients and I love meeting them and hearing their stories. And I love the strategy. I love crafting the plans. And that's why I like business so much, because it's a lot of it's strategy.
Yes.
And so I'm involved to that extent. I have not tried a case in a few years. I've always said if my schedule allows, I would love to third chair some of our big trials, but it just doesn't make sense for me to first or second chair it. And although even some of the big cases that I've come and watched, and I'm sitting there like, let me at him, I'm ready to jump from the gallery back to the table, the defense table. But and I'm an excellent trial lawyer, but it's not what's best for the business and what's best for the client, because we have amazing lawyers that are prepping all day, all night, weekends for our big trials. And so I've taken a step back, but on our big cases, I love the strategy. I tell everybody we round on all of our cases every Wednesday, and just like doctors in a hospital, except they do it every day. And I love being in that room and talking it through.
Yeah, we do that. We do something similar. Again, I'm not in the trenches unless something falls off and I have to jump in real quick on files. But to be honest with you, the lawyers I have are better at what they do than I am at this point, because there comes a fork in the road when you're scaling a practice as a business decision you have to make of, am I going to be Adam, the CEO of the Rossen law firm, Or do I have to control everything? Because then you're going to limit your growth, and you're probably losing your edge as a lawyer if you're doing both as well. You kind of have to figure out what you want to be when you grow up. And it seems like you've definitely kind of made that decision at the fork in the road to become the CEO, but still provide excellent service according to a systematized plan like EOS, and hiring the right people in the right seats.
We're still working through that. We're in year 4 of EOS. It's tremendous. It's been our North Star, our guiding light. And I always say EOS is a system for making decisions, consistently good decisions, right? I mean, that's what most of my clients have issues with, impulse control or consistently making good decisions, but same in business, right? And to go back, I couldn't agree with you more. Although I still think I can give an amazing closing argument, and I still think I can cross, any witness with the best of them, I'm not up to date on the case law anymore. I'm not, you don't want me arguing the motion to suppress or writing it, right? You don't want me arguing, jury instructions and motions in limine anymore. And we've been in a position where we've been able to hire amazingly talented lawyers. We're very particular in who we bring in that are better than me now, because they're in the trenches every day and they're doing, that's their life. Right. So I can assist, I can bring some good, advice or work things through. But yeah, my job is to step out and let them be the stars, which for a trial lawyer with a big ego can be hard at times. But I've been out of production 2.5 years. So I've gotten used to it.
Yeah. And I've been out, on the whole, almost 10 years, right? From files.
Wow.
And, but I was talking at a mastermind with, Craig Goldenfarb and James Joseph. I don't know if you know James. He's starting to become bigger on LinkedIn, and he's doing a lot of the masterminds that you and I do. So I was talking about if a file hits my desk now, what I feel versus what I used to feel. And I think that we use the term called acquired incompetence, meaning you make yourself irrelevant to the technical aspects of the file so that you can grow the business and serve more people as the CEO. And it's done purposefully under the systems that we're using, right? Like EOS.
Right.
And all of a sudden, if that hits my desk again, it's not the Tom Tona that used to lawyer these files as the trial attorney.
Right.
And so that's why, like, we're in the process now. We have a trial counsel who's outside of the firm, and we're also bringing in a trial attorney as well internally, who's a very seasoned player. Because, like you said, I want somebody that's in it, taking the big verdicts day after day, and you have to be particular at that level of hire, right? So that you can actually, in the words of EOS, let go with a vine.
Right.
Well,
and some people, there's many different models, right? And so in criminal defense, you can scale a firm doing high volume, low fee, low quality legal work, but I've never wanted to do that. Nothing that I've ever done in my life is low quality. I was a high school basketball coach for 10 years and won a state championship. I've coached extremely talented players. So I've always been competitive and I've always wanted to be the best. So if we're building our firm, I would hate it if people met with me and then got some brand new lawyer who didn't know what they were doing, right? What kind of bait and switch is that? That's not helping the community. It's not helping individuals and families. And that's just, I'm not putting my name on that, right? You can make a lot of money doing that, but it's also, to me, it's not a sustainable business. We're in the relationship business, even though you hope most of your clients never get into a car crash, right? You hope that they will refer you anybody who does. And if it's inevitable, you want them to come back. Same with us. I never want my clients to get rearrested or get in trouble again. But but we know that we want to make them our best referral sources. And that if, it ever does happen again, that they're coming back because they had, we took people from a terrible experience to a very good one. And that is so important and powerful to me. And we have a lot of people who in our local community who are like, oh, Adam came out of nowhere. It's all this marketing. Yeah, marketing is a piece, but relationships are, to me, a bigger piece to create a long-term sustainable business. And luckily, a lot of the curmudgeon old school criminal defense lawyers don't understand that. So it's easy for us.
But it's also, as you were talking, we share a lot of similarities. Like, one of my core values is superior lawyering, right? Because my entire career, I was meticulous with the way that I lawyered files. And because I had tried cases, I knew from beginning to end what it should look like.
Yep.
Right. And so I would urge anybody that's listening to this, one, if you're going to open a practice, have done everything that practice is going to be. Meaning, I in the PI space now, there's a lot of segmentation. So I have people that come in, they want jobs, and they're like, I do everything except for try cases. I'm like, how are you going to call yourself a personal injury
Right.
lawyer if you have not tried cases? And worse, you tell me you don't want to try cases. Now, you can be a motion writer, you can be an intake attorney. There's all this fragmentation, but I think that what allows you to scale and me to scale is having done that, you know what excellent work looks like.
Yep.
And the best marketing out there is top-notch legal work because it yields great results. And even though you can't promise results or guarantee results, it makes people sleep better at night knowing, you might tell them, look, I can't guarantee an outcome, but I'm going to leave it all on the mat for you.
Mm-hmm.
When we walk out of that courtroom, you will know you got the best lawyering available. So that is the best marketing strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we actually do make guarantees, not as far as the result, but we promise them that we're going to treat you with respect, that we're going to care for you, as if it was you were our loved one, that we are going to overturn every single stone. And if we can't beat it, no one else can. And, right. We make those promises and guarantees. And because they're all true and we deliver every single time on those. But right. And I'm with you. Now, we do know though, so, our friend Craig, he has it segmented between pre-lit and lit, and that works well for him. But now he's at a much larger point. I don't believe he was able to do that at, 1/3 of the revenue he's at now, right?
Correct.
Maybe 15 years ago. So, if I wanted to open up an appellate practice, and if we thought we had the right person, the right marketing, and the amount of cases who, somebody didn't want to do that, I would consider it. If we had, we've talked about hiring, we have hired in the past and it didn't work out, a sales attorney, because right now all of our attorneys are the sales attorneys, but still it's really myself and Manny, who's the managing partner. And I need to still get and do more of the business stuff. So we've looked and we're always looking for somebody who wants to build relationships and handle the signups, but doesn't have that itch to go to court anymore. But they, it's a very specific person we're looking for.
Yeah.
And, we'll be patient until we get that person. I know Jay Ruane, I was just listening to a podcast with him and Seth, and he was saying he's had his sales attorney for 10 years.
Yeah, I was listening to the same podcast.
Yeah. A lot of lawyers will call themselves entrepreneurs and they're not. Even the ones that we hang out with. No, you're a business owner, which now to be a business owner, right, who owns a law firm is a tremendous step up than most of the lawyers at the bar associations. And I don't go and hang out with those lawyers anymore. So that is not something to, to kind of not be proud of.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that we meet who call themselves entrepreneurs and no, you're not. And I'm 100% with you, Tom. And I'm sure I got a lot of things that I want to ask you about all your side businesses, but that's where I want to get to. I want to get to the point where I have my hands in multiple businesses. I'm doing the things that are that are creative and that are strategic planning, and that those things are exciting to me. Having a team together to say, okay, how are we going to do this, this, and this? Great. All right. Now you guys deploy it, right? Because I'm not going to do any of the work now, but let's strategize and plan. And I can't do that yet until I elevate a little further out in the firm. But at the same time, the firm is so special to me. So it's become a bit of a paradox. But I have young kids, they're 4 and 1. And depending on how they are, if they're like, hey, Dad, can you invest or can we do something? Like that would be music to my ears in 20 years, 30 years. I'm like, wait, you want to go into business? Sure, let's do it. Right. And just see other opportunities that come up. So I'm trying to build my team as well, so we can have a real executive team that, if we see some other opportunities or niches in many different markets or even jobs, businesses, that I can say, all right, yeah, do it. I'm the parent at the kids' gym, at every Saturday or Sunday party now in South Florida, where I'm reverse engineering how the kids' gym makes money. in my head. I'm talking to the employees, right? Asking all the questions. And then I'm like, okay, well, we can make this much off one, but really we get to 5. That's when we can scale. How's the marketing? Oh, this is just moms and Facebook and Instagram marketing to the 30 to 40-year-old moms. Like,
so listen,
that's where my brain goes now.
I could let you in on a little secret. Like, I've always been entrepreneurial, right? I think I was, I've told this story before, but I'm a natural sales guy. So I think in junior high school, I was selling pins that I would get for free for $1 a piece. And I would go get bags of pins and sell them for $1 a piece. So I also had to reel in that impulse for a very long time, because I've got this brain that I'm like, I just want to keep things in motion, shiny thing, objects, the whole thing. Organically, a lot of opportunities came to bear this year because the market was talking to me, right? So for years, people like, I developed this software program for my no-fault collection practice. I'm the only one that has it. I'm the only one that's ever had it because I built it. I invested like a significant amount of money to have it built out. And we've been using it for going on 8 years. And I've had people saying, you got to monetize. I said, relax. But this year, now I finally spun it off into a separate company because I'm doing succession planning. I'm 55 and the market was talking to me. I've had 4 or 5 people come to me saying, we want to license your software versus building it ourselves and taking 10 years and spending $500,000 to do that. Right. So the market told me, all right, it's time to do it. I'm going to get off my butt and do it. So I think that at the right time, it'll find you. Versus you having to even, kind of put your brain to work or close yourself in when you least expect it. Least expect it, and all of a sudden now you're sitting on 3 companies, 4 companies, and it's easier than you thought it was going to be. Right? They're still in their infancy stage, but I'm not overly concerned about it. And again, my focus is still my law firm first, and then everything else as an adjunct. Right.
And we've thought about opening other practice areas too. And I've always said criminal is first, the firm comes first. We'll see. Right. And it's never, we're not yet where I want it to be to move on to some other thing, not really move on, but to open up new things. And, look, my definition of luck, which a lot of people have heard is, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And exactly, you put in the work. Right. You were prepared and now some new things are coming along and now you're ready to seize the opportunity because you prepared and it was right. There's no such thing as an overnight success. So it's about laying that groundwork, that foundation. And I have that battle in my head every day of, Adam has 20 ideas. I initially think 19 are great and probably 4 are great, but then I tend to then become obsessive or have to then kind of scale back and be like, that's a great idea, just not now.
Not now. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's common, I think, with entrepreneurs. I think that, who's your integrator in your office?
So it was Manny for years, and we just switched to Laura, who we hired about about 9 months ago to replace me as the director of marketing. And she ran her own agency previously, and she had a lot of skills. And so right now she's our chief revenue officer. So she's in charge of marketing and intake. And in January, we decided that really just legal needed Manny's focus, but Manny's also becoming, an owner of the firm. And so he, if we're talking CEO, I think Manny would be a much better CEO than me. And so he's stepped aside for that. And Laura is now taking the integrator role, whether that's COO, whatever name it is. It's just she's the integrator. Everything's really trying to flow through her. But really, even with our same page meetings, it's me, Manny, and Laura. Right. It's the 3 of us as we're doing things. So, and she's been really good at that. Now we're, still needing to get in some mid managers at the marketing and intake level to help because that's too much for anybody to fully be in charge of. But that's kind of something different, and she's been really good.
But it's interesting the way your firm is growing, and I would, posit the following. I've been blessed. I have an amazing integrator. She's been with me 20 years. She has grown into an integrator. She started out as a paralegal, but she had a background in law office management, educationally. I never even knew because I was so stupid when I first hired her. I don't think I even read resumes, honestly. Like it's that I'm like, oh, she wants a job. I need a worker, hire her.
Yep.
Right.
Been there, done that.
But what happened was we grew together, right? I grew as an executive leader and she is this amazing integrator. Like I truly believe that in an organization, the number one is great, the visionary, but the integrator's role, which is to harness and shield everybody from the visionary and their whipsaw of, I got a great idea every 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. The integrator, it's such a pivotal role because they're the ones that get everything done. They're the ones that execute. And operations are what make the business run. So yeah, I think that that's interesting that, now you have somebody replacing Manny. Manny's going into a managing attorney role and he's becoming a partner. I think that that's awesome. So I know that you're a big believer in you mentioned people and, you and I have talked about this a lot. People are the business.
Absolutely. What
kinds of things do you do to foster professional growth of the people on your team?
So that's another great question. And, I'll take a step back though. We grew tremendously during the Great Resignation in 2021. We went from 6 to 13 in 1 year and then from 13 to 20 in another year. Wow. And even before that, we went from 3 to 6. So we've had this kind of doubling year over year over year. And so it was difficult in 2021 and 2022 about finding the right people and getting them in the right seats, especially when we started EOS, because we started EOS and we're like, ooh, I love these people, but we're not growing with them. Right. Yep. And it's hard for relationships. And I've also heard, with some of the coaches and people that I'm involved in, they really drilled it into my head back then of Adam, you're the captain and the captain doesn't eat with the crew. And I started thinking that way. And the past year or so, I've really had some deep reflection. I said, that's not the firm I want to build. I've always been a guy who is on the front lines. I personally think that if, I'm the guy you want to be in a foxhole with. Right. And so I love our people. I love our team. And I don't, sure, there's boundaries, but I don't want to have that firm where I'm, the captain doesn't eat with the crew. I want it to be like a family. Now, look, the good thing is you can't choose your real family. You can choose your friends, but you can choose, your work family. And we spend a lot of time together, right? Monday through Friday, I spend way more time with my work family than I do with my own real family. Right. Yeah. And so it's about making sure that we have the right people and the right culture and our culture is a little tough because we are so hard charging and demanding of ourselves. So we need everybody to kind of have those attributes. But we're only as good as our team, right? And we can only help people if we're helping our people first, right?
Right.
And so it's really about learning about that. And, the hardest, I think the most rewarding, best part of the job is people. And the most difficult, most frustrating part of the job is dealing with people.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of my coaches say, Adam, it's all about enrollment. And people are not either enrolled or they're not. There's levels of enrollment. And he has a kind of a chart and a whole mantra of the 10 stages of enrollment. And really just constantly, and it's not throwing pizza parties. Sure, we have lots of those and different things. But at the end of the day, if people don't feel like they have an opportunity for growth or they're respected or they're making an impact, then nobody cares about a stupid pizza party, right? So, and I'm not perfect at it. And I don't like managing people. I've come to learn through EOS that, and this is, look, I was a high school basketball coach, right? I love teaching and training people who give me energy, but I don't like the people who don't give me energy. And that, you can't just pick and choose, right? It's not like you can't say, oh, I love my wife when everything's great, but I don't love her when it's crappy, right? You're either all in or you're all out, for better or worse. And so I've realized that for a lot of the managerial stuff, if I struggle with low performers or different things, then it's probably better to have somebody else, handle that because they have more emotional stamina in that regard than I do. And so a lot of this too has been kind of learning about who I am as a person, journey of self-discovery.
Which it's kind of what we're all on, right? It's a journey of self-discovery. And you bring up an interesting paradox that I think a lot of people may not know that are listening to this, especially if they're not on EOS or they're, again, 10 to 20 years behind us on this. And that was this. And I don't know if you have a hard stop. I'll be respectful of the time. Just let me know.
Good.
But the paradox is this. There is a huge difference, a world of difference between leadership and management. Yes. They are two separate things. And so once I realized that, I was like, oh, that's why I have such better managers in my office than me, because I used to feel bad and say, I'm not a great trainer. I'm not a great onboarder, and management is not my thing, but I am a great leader, right? So you love your people, you put systems in place, and you put managers in place to give those team members what they need and want without having to be you. Right. So I've been blessed. I have 3 fantastic managers that I could never manage the teams that they're managing right now. And yeah, it's a big distinction that, I mean, it's too much to go into here and I'm no expert at it, but I would tell anybody that's listening, if you own a law firm, there's levels to this game. And so you got to figure out what level you're at and where you want to go, right? If you own a law firm, you might be a firm owner, but you're not a business owner. You're not a business owner unless you have leverage points, profit centers, systems, process, all that other stuff. And then if you're a leader, you have managers. Like you said, you're building out management and leadership teams. I'm at that same stage, right? And I think we're at roughly the same revenue levels too. I always cringe when people use the word family with business. And to each their own. I prefer the term team because I look at it like, if I'm the owner of a team, then there's a coach there and you're very surgical about a team. You can love your Michael Jordans, but if Michael Jordan develops a coke habit, Michael Jordan's out on his ass because and Michael Jordan, just for the record, Michael Jordan does not have a coke habit. I'm using it as an example that if
lawyer disclaimer.
Lawyer disclaimer. But if someone is not in alignment with your vision and your core values and your culture, then they're not going to be part of that team. I just know how EOS is, and I'm sure you run it the same way.
Absolutely.
So that's why I cringe a little bit with the family terminology. And I just had a long discourse with Bill Umansky about this over dinner because Bill, he just leads with love and he loves people and they're his family. And I'm like, okay, that to each his own. That's just not how I'm built.
And I think they're kind of can be two sides of the same coin in a way, because we use the team terminology too, but we can't help but I can't help but feel like when we're working so hard and we're spending so much time that it does become that. And look, I've been a part of some amazing basketball teams and some, some disappointing or underachieving basketball teams. And I can tell you the best teams that I've been on have been when everybody is so close and tight knit, where they've grown up together and they're genuinely good friends and they genuinely love and care for each other as friends or family, right? Non-blood, but family that's not blood. And so I think, maybe it's, it could just be kind of the way we phrase it, right? Or different expectations of what the words are. But yeah, we use the team terminology here, but at the same time, I still want it to be that type of atmosphere because we are in this together. I
get it. And I love my people. And I have people that I'll use my 3 managers, for example, that I love them dearly. Some of them have been to my wedding, my daughter's christening, my house, but they also know that if they got to show up every day and that boundary's there, and they know that if they're not in alignment with the mission, the culture, the business, the next day they'll be out. Right. Because you probably heard the same podcast that I heard those guys talking about on Jay's podcast, which was that they've never seen a performance improvement plan that's ever panned out. So I sat we joke about that too. Yeah. Well, I sat down to lunch with Janira, who's my integrator, and I said, I got to ask you a question. In all the years we've been doing this, have we ever seen a performance improvement plan that's worked out? And we have had one or two instances where we're like, oh, we're glad we did this. But for the most part, we probably should have just ripped the Band-Aid off and said, look, this is not a long-term alignment and we're not going to make it work.
I think we've had one as well. And we have another one right now that I'm very hopeful, but yeah, 85, 90% of the time, I'm just like, this is just the inevitable.
Problem. Yeah. So what I am going to do, just from a learning perspective for myself, is put it on a much shorter leash. There's not going to be a 6-month performance plan. There's going to be, you got 30 days. Well, we gotta reconsider where we're going with this.
Well, and Tom, I can tell you, we usually do 90, but we've done it a few where we've done it at 90 and we've cut bait at 30. So
right.
But yeah.
So it was an interesting thing, like that one takeaway. That's why I happen to love those guys on a podcast, because they free flow with their ideas and they go all over the place. So really quick, talk to me about, I love innovation. It's another one of our core values is an innovative mindset. We're always looking to improve client experience. And we're always looking at it from the client standpoint, whether it's our B2B silo or our B2C silo, the PI stuff. Where do you see room for innovation within criminal defense?
That's a great question. So, I mean, for us, it's really, it's relationship business. You know, we're building out our custom software. We're using it on Salesforce. I tried everything, and I wanted more control, and it's still not perfect, but I think with Salesforce or some type of legal software, and look, criminal lawyers tend to be some of the least innovative. Maybe I personally think PI lawyers are a lot more innovative because there's a lot more stakes, meaning, money, right? Yeah. So it just
competition is a lot of competition.
Well, I think the money brings the competition, right? And with criminal law, there's tons of competition in criminal law, but it's more people doing it out of just their ego of being a trial lawyer or just having a love for people, but not necessarily thinking it can be scalable and you can, run a successful business.
Right.
So I think a lot of it still is technology based. So we're doing a lot on that front. Still, some of the marketing messages and everything we're still really working on. And just trying to build a larger firm that still is powerful, feels powerful, but also feels like a small down home, traveling doctor, right? The doctor's going to come to your house.
Right.
But, but I really think especially like you take a look at medicine, right? Medicine's either corporate now, it's skewing, like look at politics, right? Things are skewing either one way or the other. And the middle ground is going away. So in medicine, for the last 3 years, I've had a VIP doctor. My 4-year-old has had a VIP pediatrician since he was born. Now, it costs like $3,000 a year. Right. But back in 2019, when I was still in production, running around the courthouse all the time, and it was just me and Manny as the two lawyers, my wife and I had an analysis, and we said, we live in Boca Raton. She's a prosecutor in Palm Beach. And at that time, we only had one office in Fort Lauderdale. And although we handled cases in Palm Beach and Miami, predominantly we were in Fort Lauderdale and Broward. And we said, look, time is money. And I lose one case, that's way more than $3,000. And if I lose it because we're spending 2 hours at the pediatrician, we don't want our kids around other sick kids. I don't want to be around sick kids and different things. And so we said, yeah, $3,000 is a no-brainer, right? Where we're at. And it's not like we're, especially at that time, we did well, but I can't say that we're, extremely uber wealthy, right?
Right.
$3,000. And so I think a lot of it's kind of moving into some of those ways with customer service. Look, right, I won't go, again, with kids, I won't go to Universal without staying at one of the nicest hotels that has the water taxi and the fast pass. I'm paying for experiences now. I'm not going to sit, as much as I love Harry Potter, I'm not going to sit or stand in a 2-hour line. I'm going to use the fast pass and be in and out in 25, 30 minutes. Right. And to me, that's what it's about. I'm not taking, the middle seat on Spirit anymore.
Right.
Right. And so it's about value. So making sure that we can continue to really work on our messaging, with the clients about the value. You know, we reuse like a lot of our marketing materials and videos. We use it for the sales cycle too. So as far as major innovations, we're still kind of working through some of those things, but I think there's a lot of ways in the market where you can have high-end exclusive, low amount of clients, and then you can still have that middle ground and maybe provide some different offerings too with pricing and structuring and different levels of client care. I think, and obviously doing it through tech. I mean, ChatGPT, and that is fantastic for contingency and flat fee firms. It's going to be terrible for billable hour.
Right.
And it's going to make, and that's fine though. So I think the way you and I are positioned to, if we can be more efficient and deliver a better customer service through even more automation, it's going to be really helpful.
What's next for the Rossen Law Firm?
Well, now, we have 9 offices through South Florida now.
Wow,
so that's,
nice.
we've built up quite a bit. We're pushing, I think we should hit 1,000 5-star reviews at the end of this year. Fingers crossed, hopefully.
Nice.
We're doing an amazing job. We're helping so many people. We're not going to go into Orlando. That's Umansky's territory.
Right.
And luckily we're in a big enough state where we don't need to go 2.5 hours outside, right? 3 hours outside of our comfort zone. But really, we want to have a handle of South Florida and just dominate South Florida. And look, one of the things that again, just like you and I, we've been blessed to have so many mentors. But one of the very first things that Ben Glass taught me back in 2016, 2017 was, Adam, if you think you are a better lawyer than everybody else, and I would also say now built a firm that has better systems, policies, procedures to help people in a better way, then you have a moral and ethical obligation to grow, right? To serve more people.
I love that. I've heard him say that. Yeah,
right.
I love that.
And I couldn't agree more. And we've always grown, but tried to pump the brakes, too, because I never wanted the quality to become poor. Right. We've all seen that where certain restaurants, and then all of a sudden things change. You're like, it's not the same place it used to be. What happened? Yep. So we really want to dominate South Florida first. We're looking into some other areas as well. Do we go up the East Coast? Do we go to the West Coast a little bit? We've had some ideas about some other services that we can provide, but I'm not just going to do it to make money. I'm going to do it to make sure that we can help people and do it right.
Listen, I've loved having you on. Is there anything else you want to share with everybody? Any kind of message you want to put out there?
I mean, look, I love this stuff. I absolutely love this stuff. I love being around people who want to have personal and professional growth, who want to help others. I've been so fortunate since kind of my rebirth with this in 2015, 2016 to have friends, mentors, and just made it very deliberate. So anybody who's watching this, listening to this, and is like, wow, Adam seems like he actually has it together some days, reach out, because I can learn as much from you as you can learn from me. And it's all about relationships. So I love meeting people and talking about this stuff. It used to be talking about all the new case law and different ways to cross-examine, a cop. And now it's this kind of stuff. So
yeah, those are the rooms that we're not in anymore. Like when people start talking about cases, I'm like, ooh, wrong guy, wrong room. I'm not the guy for you for that.
Right. And we promote our lawyers and we send them to those conferences. Manny and I go to the stuff where we see you, but everybody else, they go to the other conferences and really learn the technical skills. I'm going to be, I know I'm not going to see you in Boston at Craig and John's.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking to me. I'm going to EOS out in San Diego.
I've never been to their conference, so let me know how it is.
Yeah, I will. I'm going with my integrator and I'm like, man, I signed up for a week straight. And then she signed me up for the Visionary Masterclass. They have this Visionary Masterclass, 8 hours straight on Monday. I'm going to be in this class, and I've heard that it's pretty intense. So
it's going to be a bunch of crazy people like us just spitting out 1,000 ideas. Yeah,
you're not allowed to look at your phone. You're not allowed to look at your Apple Watch. I'm like, this is going to be a torture chamber for me right now. So listen, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'd have you on anytime. If you have any good cases you want to talk about or wins that you're proud of, I'd love to have you come back on, man. I love what you're doing down there. And I think what you're doing is really special in your specific space. I see a lot of PI firms that are scaling and investing in the business model and all of that. I I only know of the other two we mentioned, and yours is the third. They're not even near in your market. And I don't see that. Like, I don't see it in my local market. So I think that the world is your oyster. You've kind of got a blue ocean ahead of you in terms of what you're doing at scale. So good for you. I'm happy for you.
Good. Well, we can survey the Long Island area and see if I want to come on up. And
you never know, man. You never know. A lot of people like coming out here in the summer when you guys are too hot down there.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
All right, listen, man, thanks for coming on. And this is the Lead Counsel Podcast, and you can hear us wherever podcasts are distributed. And this is Adam Rossen, Rossen Law Firm. Adam, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me, Tom. This is great. Love talking to you.